All right, let's talk about one of the most dreaded topics for anyone studying for a networking exam, IP subnetting. But I want you to forget all about that tedious binary math. Today, we're going to break down a game-changing shortcut that can get you the right answer in, like, 7 seconds. Okay, let's get into it.
So, does this sound familiar? You're staring at a page full of ones and zeros trying to manually convert IP addresses and subnet masks, and you are just completely lost. You are not alone, I promise. It's a process that trips up so many people. It feels crazy complex, it's slow, and one tiny little mistake can throw your entire calculation out the window.
So let's just look at the old way versus the method we're talking about today. Traditional subnetting, it's slow, it's tedious, and it's notoriously easy to mess up. But this 7-second subnetting method, it's fast, it's super reliable, and this is the best part, there's almost no math involved. We are talking about a total game changer, especially when you're in a high-pressure exam.
Okay, so here's our roadmap to turn you into a subnetting whiz. First, we'll talk about the challenge itself. Then I'll introduce this awesome shortcut. We're going to build the one and only tool you'll need, the master chart, and then walk through a really simple 4-step process. Finally, we'll put it all to the test with a couple of real-world examples.
So first, just a quick reminder on why this is such a big deal. Subnetting is, a fundamental concept in networking. It's how we manage and organize our networks to be more efficient. It's pretty much a requirement for any networking certification out there, but it's almost always taught in the most complicated way imaginable.
At its heart, this is all subnetting really is. You're just taking one big network, let's say it has 256 addresses, and you're chopping it up into smaller, more manageable pieces. You might split it into 2 subnets, or 4, or maybe 8. It's absolutely essential for security, performance, and just keeping things organized.
And now for the solution. The 7-second subnetting method. This is the exact process that a lot of pros, including the great Professor Messer, actually use on their exams. It is a shortcut designed for pure speed and accuracy. And believe me, it's about to become your new best friend.
So why is this thing so effective? Well, it's all about the prep work. The entire method hinges on a little reference chart that you scribble down at the beginning of your exam. This one chart gets rid of all that complicated binary math. I'm serious. The only calculation you'll do is adding or subtracting 1. And the best part? It's perfect for exams because you can write it out on a physical whiteboard or an online one just as easily.
The absolute key to this whole thing is creating one simple chart. Once you have this chart, you have everything you need. You can solve any subnetting problem they throw at you without having to do any of that nasty math. So let's break down how to build it.
Now, I know this chart looks a little intimidating at first, but it is incredibly simple to build from memory. For the networks column, you just start at 2 and you double it every time. 2, 4, 8, 16, and so on. For the addresses column, you do the exact opposite. You start at 128 and you just cut it in half all the way down. 128, 64, 32, and that's it. That's the entire engine that makes this shortcut work.
And hey, if you ever find it a little tricky to figure out where a subnet starts, you can also jot down this little secondary chart. It's totally optional. It just lists the starting points for subnets of a certain size. So, for example, a network with 64 addresses will always start on 0, 64, 128, or 192. It's just a great little cheat sheet to have ready.
All right, we have our tool. Now we just need to know how to use it. And the good news is, it's a simple, repeatable 4-step process that works every single time.
Here they are, the 4 steps. First, you'll use your chart to quickly turn that CIDR notation, the slash number, like /26, into a decimal subnet mask. Second, you'll find the subnet, or the network address. Third, you'll find the broadcast address for that subnet. And finally, you'll figure out the first and last usable IP addresses. And that's where that super simple ±1 math comes in.
Theory is great and all, but let's see how this actually works. We're going to walk through 2 examples, starting with a pretty straightforward one, and then we'll tackle something a little bit trickier.
Let's start with this IP address, 165.245.12.88 with the /24 CIDR. Now, a /24 is probably one you already know by heart, but let's follow the process anyway, just to see how the rules work.
Okay, so let's break this down. An IP address has 4 parts, right? The octets. For a 24 mask, the first 3 are 255, and the last one is 0. So, here's the rule for the network address. If a mask octet is 255, you just copy the number down from the IP address. If the mask octet is 0, you write a 0. So that gives us 165,
255.245.12.0. Easy. Now for the broadcast address. The rule's pretty similar. If the mask is 255, copy the number. But if it's 0, you use 255. That gives us 165.245.12.255. From there, it's super simple. The first usable IP is just one higher than the network, and the last is one lower than the broadcast. See? No crazy math.
Okay, let's try a more common exam-style problem. Same IP address, but this time with a /26 mask. This is where our master chart really starts to shine.
First thing we do is look at our chart. A /26 gives us blocks of 64 addresses. Okay, now look at the last number of our IP address. It's 88. So we just have to ask ourselves, which block of 64 does 88 fit into? Well, the block start at 0, then 64, then 128. Okay, 88 is bigger than 64, but it's less than 128. So it's in the 64 block. That is our network address, 165.245.12.64. And since the next block starts at 128, our broadcast address must be the number right before it, 127. The rest is a piece of cake. Add 1 to the network for the first usable IP, and subtract 1 from the broadcast for the last one. And we are done.
Now look, this is just one method. And as Professor Messer says, the most important thing is to find the shortcut that really clicks for you. Whether it's this method, the magic number method, or something else entirely, just pick one and decide to use that for your exam. Consistency is really the key.
You know, by mastering a technique like this, you're not just learning how to pass a test, you're learning how to break down really complex problems into simple, manageable steps. You've basically turned a nightmare topic into a 7-second task. So the real question is, what other complex challenge are you going to decide to master next?